What if the one man you trusted most, the brother you swore loyalty to, was the one plotting to take everything from you? Aid never doubted Oba, never saw the envy growing in his heart. But trust, when misplaced, becomes a dagger. By the time he saw the truth, it was too late. This is the story of how one man lost everything to the brother who smiled beside him. Stay with us, because this tale will make you question, who can you really trust? Aid and Oba grew up together like two seeds from the same pod. They ran through the fields, climbed trees, and dreamed of the future. They were inseparable, always sharing their food, their troubles, and their laughter. The village elders often said, "A man can have many brothers, but true brotherhood is a gift from the spirits." Aid and Oba believed nothing could ever break their bond. They made a promise to each other, swearing, no matter what happens, riches, hardships, or time, we will always stand together. As they grew into men, their paths began to change. Aid became a hard-working farmer, rising with the sun and working until the stars filled the sky. His hands tilled the soil with patience, and the land rewarded him with great harvests. He became respected in the village, known for his wisdom, kindness, and success. His farm flourished, and so did his home. Oba, though just as skilled, was different. He wanted success, but he did not want to wait for it. He dreamed of wealth and admiration, but without the hard work. He envied Aid's fortune, the land, the respect, and most of all, his beautiful wife, Zara. Zara was the pride of the village, not just for her beauty, but for her grace and intelligence. She carried herself like a queen, her wisdom keeping Aid's home in harmony. She was the kind of woman any man would wish for, but she was devoted only to her husband. People admired their love, but admiration is often followed by envy. Oba saw what Aid had, and something dark grew inside him. At night, as he watched Aid and Zara laugh under the moon, he clenched his fists. He remembered his own loneliness, his empty home, and the lack of a legacy he had built. A whisper crept into his mind, telling him, "Why does he have everything while you have nothing?" The more he thought about it, the heavier the thought became. One day, Aid announced that he was leaving for a long trading journey. He needed someone he trusted to watch over his home. Without hesitation, he turned to Oba. "Brother, take care of my home, my land, and my wife. I trust you more than anyone," Aid said, placing a strong hand on Oba's shoulder. Oba bowed his head and said, "As long as I live, nothing will harm what is yours." But the village elders, wise from years of watching men rise and fall, exchanged looks. One of them murmured, "A man must never leave his home in the hands of another." Another shook his head. "Aid does not see what we see. The eyes of envy never close." Aid only laughed at their words, believing Oba would never betray him. With confidence in his heart, he turned and walked away, never looking back. He did not see the hunger in Oba's eyes, the longing that had turned into something dangerous. And so, the seed was planted. One of trust, one of betrayal. Only time would tell which would grow stronger. Oba stepped into Aid's home with a sense of duty, carrying the weight of his friend's trust on his shoulders. He tended to the farm, fed the animals, and ensured the house remained as Aid had left it. The villagers saw his dedication and whispered among themselves about his loyalty. "Oba is a true friend," they said. "Aid is lucky to have him." Their words filled Oba with pride, but something deeper stirred within him. A thought, quiet at first, began to grow, though he did not yet recognize it for what it was. Each morning, he saw Zara moving through the household with effortless grace. She carried herself with dignity, her hands steady as she worked, her laughter soft yet lingering in the air. Oba had always known her as his friend's wife, but now he found himself watching her in a different way. He told himself it was nothing. She is my brother's wife. I must respect that, he whispered under his breath. Yet as the days passed, he found it harder to look away. He noticed how she smiled, how her voice carried warmth, how she moved with quiet strength. Zara remained the same as she had always been, kind, gentle, and devoted to her husband. She treated Oba like a brother, asking about the farm, preparing his meals, and speaking of Aid with longing. But Oba did not hear her words as she intended them. He heard something else, something that fueled the thoughts he tried to push away. At night, when the village was silent, he lay awake, his mind filled with questions that refused to leave. Does she see me as more than a friend? He wondered. If Aid had not married her, could she have been mine? Slowly, without realizing it, he began to shift the truth. His words, though spoken gently, carried a hidden weight. Aid is a great man, he told Zara. But does he truly see all that you do for him? He paused, watching her reaction before adding, he should have taken you with him. If you were my wife, I would never leave you behind. Zara laughed at his words, thinking them harmless. She did not see the poison in them, nor how they took root in her mind, no matter how small. One day, Oba brought her gifts, small things, a beaded necklace, a silk head wrap, saying they were from Aid, delivered by a passing trader. Zara's face lit up with surprise and joy. He still thinks of me, she whispered, running her fingers over the necklace. Oba smiled, but he said nothing. He knew the truth. The gifts were from him, not Aid. But he let her believe, let her heart fill with warmth that she unknowingly directed toward the wrong man. In the village market, whispers about Zara began to spread. A wife should not be alone for so long, someone muttered. Before Zara could speak, Oba's voice rang through the market. Zara is the most faithful woman in this village, he declared. Anyone who speaks against her speaks against me. Villagers nodded in admiration. They saw him as a protector, a man of honor, but Zara, for the first time, felt something strange. Gratitude, yes, but also unease. There was something in Oba's voice, in his eyes, that she did not understand. That night, as the oil lamp flickered, Oba spoke words he could no longer keep inside. Zara, I love you. The moment the words left his mouth, the world seemed to stop. Zara's eyes widened in shock. You dishonor my husband, you dishonor our friendship, she cried. Oba stepped closer, desperation in his voice. He does not deserve you, Zara. He does not see you the way I do. But she stepped back, her voice firm. Never speak of this again. Rejection settled in Oba's heart like a stone sinking into deep water. Shame turned to anger, and anger turned to something darker. If I cannot have her, then she must see Aid as unworthy, he thought. His mind twisted with plans, his heart no longer beating with love for his friend, but with a desire for vengeance. The seed had been planted, and now it would grow. Aid's journey had been long, but his heart was light. He had thought of nothing but home, his wife's embrace, his friends' laughter, the peace of his own land. As he rode through the village, the people greeted him, but something was different. Their smiles did not reach their eyes. Their voices were hushed, their glances filled with something he could not name. His steps slowed as he reached his doorstep. The air was thick, heavy, as if carrying a secret no one dared to speak. Zara stood before him, but something was wrong. Her smile was faint, her voice quiet. She did not rush into his arms as he had imagined. Instead, she looked at him as though a great distance lay between them. You have returned, she said, her voice careful, almost measured. And I have longed for this moment, Aid said, searching her face. Is something wrong? Before she could answer, Oba stepped forward, too close, his presence too familiar in Aid's home. Brother, welcome back. Oba's words were warm, but his eyes did not match his tone. Aid felt a shift in his chest, a strange unease that had never existed before. Zara lowered her gaze, her hands clasped tightly. Something had changed in his absence, but he did not yet know what. As Aid walked through the village, the weight of his suspicions grew. People whispered when he passed, their eyes filled with pity. The elders, who once greeted him with wisdom, now nodded in silence. A mother's voice reached his ears as she warned her child. A man who leaves his home open invites the storm inside. The words clung to his thoughts like a shadow. What storm had entered his home? That evening, Oba called him aside. His face was lined with concern, his voice low and heavy. "Brother, there is something I must tell you," he began, looking away as if the words pained him. "It is about Zara." Aid felt his breath tighten, but he said nothing. She came to me in your absence. She told me she had feelings for me." Oba lowered his head. "I rejected her, Aid. I would never betray you, but I fear her heart has already strayed." Aid's blood turned cold. He had trusted Oba his entire life. His friend had never lied to him. But Zara, his Zara, she would never betray me, Ade said, shaking his head. Oba sighed, his face drawn in false sorrow. "I thought the same, but I could not keep this from you, brother." That night, Ade confronted Zara. His voice trembled with anger and confusion. "Did you seek another in my absence?" Zara's eyes widened, her face shifting from shock to hurt. "You believe him over me? Tell me the truth," Aid demanded. She stepped forward, her voice urgent. "Oba lies. I have done nothing but wait for you. Long for you, pray for your safe return." But doubt had already settled in Aid's heart. He turned away from her pleading eyes. Oba's deception was not yet complete. The next day he spoke to the village, his voice loud, steady, convincing. "Zara tried to poison me," he declared, his words cutting through the air like a blade. "She wanted me to take her as my wife. She wished for Aid's death." Gasps filled the marketplace, whispers turned into flames, and soon there was no stopping the fire. Aid's anger broke free, twisting with pain. "You tried to kill me." His voice was filled with betrayal. "I did no such thing," Zara cried. "Oba speaks lies." But the village did not listen. The elders gathered, their faces grim. "This is a grave crime," one of them said. "It cannot be ignored." Ade stood before his people, his hands clenched, his voice breaking. "Zara, for your betrayal, you are banished from this land." Zara fell to her knees. "Aid, please, you know me." But no one came to her defense. The weight of Oba's lies had crushed the truth. As she was led away, her eyes met Aid's one last time. There was no anger in them, only sorrow. A storm gathered in the sky as if the gods themselves mourned what had been done. Aid watched her go, but his heart did not find peace. An elder stepped beside him, his voice low. "Would you throw away years of love for a single lie?" Aid did not answer, but the question clung to him, heavy as stone. Days passed, and the village returned to life. Aid still had his home, his friend, his reputation. But at night, his house was silent. The laughter was gone. He told himself he had done the right thing, but in the deepest part of his soul, something dark and hollow began to grow. Aid spent months in his village, but peace never returned to him. Each night, he lay awake, hearing the echoes of Zara's cries as she was cast away. The weight of his decision pressed on his heart, yet pride kept him firm. He had done what was right, had he not? A man must uphold his honor, even when it pains him. But something unseen, something unspoken, gnawed at his soul. One evening, as the village rested, a drunken voice shattered the silence. Oba, intoxicated with arrogance, laughed among the men. Aid was a fool. He trusted me like a blind man follows a thief, he boasted. I took everything from him and he never even saw it. The men around him fell silent. One slipped away and ran to Aid's home, breathless with urgency. Aid, I have heard the truth, he said. Oba has deceived you. Aid's breath left him. The words struck like a spear. His knees weakened, his mind spun, and his hands trembled. The elders' warnings, Zara's pleas and the sorrow in her eyes when she was cast away, all of it rushed back. He had thrown away love and trust for a lie. He had believed the wrong man. His mistake crushed him, but he would not let regret hold him. He had been blind, but now he saw. He had to set things right. Aid set out at once, his heart pounding. He crossed rivers, climbed hills, and pushed through forests, calling Zara's name into the wind. The road was cruel, but guilt drove him forward. He would not stop until he found her. In a distant village, he found her standing outside a small hut. She was frail but strong, her eyes filled with sorrow and wisdom. An old healer stood beside her, watching in silence. Aid fell to his knees. I was a fool, he whispered. Blinded by the lies of a man I called brother. I cast you away when I should have held you close. I beg for your forgiveness. Zara's eyes did not soften. The wounds ran too deep. She studied him before she spoke. Trust is like a broken pot, she said. You may mend it, but the cracks will always remain. Aid lowered his head. He had hoped for mercy, but he did not deserve it. They returned to the village, and the elders summoned Oba. The people murmured in anger, the truth spreading like wildfire. You betrayed your brother, your people, and the spirits of our ancestors, the chief elder declared. Oba trembled. Forgive me, he pleaded. The elders remained firm. As you cast Zara into exile, so shall you walk the land as an outcast. Your name shall not be spoken. Your face shall not be remembered. His cries fell on deaf ears. No one met his gaze as he faded into nothingness. Aid stood before the people. A man's worst enemy is not the stranger, but the one he calls brother, he said. The lesson would never be forgotten. What lesson did you learn from this story? Share your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more captivating African tales. Stay with us for more wisdom-filled stories from our rich traditions.